Do you ever pick up your cat, move them, or interrupt what they're doing without thinking? It feels harmless, like normal care, and most people think it's the right thing. But what if the truth is, these small moments are quietly damaging your cat's trust? Most people don't realize it happens without you noticing, with no clear signs. It's more common than you think, which means you might be doing it right now. Here are the most common mistakes. 1. Interrupting your cat's quiet moments. You're sitting nearby, your cat finally settles in, maybe grooming or resting, and without thinking you reach out to pet them or pull them closer because it feels like a moment of connection and affection, something most people see as a positive interaction and even a way to bond. It feels like you're doing the right thing, like you're showing care, but what's actually happening is much quieter and often unnoticed. When you interrupt a cat during these calm, self-regulated moments, you're stepping into a space where they feel in control, and that sudden touch can register as a loss of that control. Cats rely heavily on predictability and personal boundaries to feel safe, and even gentle interruptions can trigger a small internal alert in their nervous system. Most people don't realize that over time, these repeated moments build a pattern, starting as slight tension, then turning into avoidance, and eventually leading to your cat choosing distance over closeness. From your perspective, it's affection, but from theirs, it can feel like their space is never fully respected. That's where the problem starts, quietly reshaping how they see you. The simple shift is to let your cat finish what they're doing and choose when to come to you instead. 2. Inconsistent feeding times that disrupt their sense of safety. There's a quiet routine many homes fall into where food appears at slightly different times each day, sometimes earlier, sometimes later, depending on your schedule, and it blends into normal life so easily that it barely stands out as anything important. Most people assume this flexibility is harmless, even convenient, and it feels like your cat will simply adapt because they always come when the food is ready. But slowly, without noticing, this irregular pattern begins to disrupt something much deeper than hunger. Cats are built around predictable cycles, and feeding is one of the anchors that helps regulate their sense of safety and control within their environment. When that anchor keeps shifting, their internal rhythm starts to lose stability, which can lead to subtle tension, increased alertness, and a constant low-level uncertainty about when their needs will be met. Over time, this can show up as restlessness, overeating when food finally arrives, or even distant, cautious behavior around you, because you've become less predictable in their world. From their perspective, it's not just about food, it's about its reliability. And that's where it begins to affect trust in a way most people don't realize. The simple shift is to feed your cat at consistent times every day so their world feels stable again. 3. Dry food only diet that slowly affects their body. The bowl sits in the same spot every day, filled with dry food that looks clean, balanced, and convenient, and it becomes part of the background of your home so naturally that you stop thinking about it as anything more than a simple, reliable way to feed your cat. It seems harmless, even responsible, because the food is always available and your cat can eat whenever they want, which feels like freedom and comfort. But slowly, something more subtle begins to unfold inside their body. Dry food contains very little moisture, and cats aren't naturally driven to drink enough water to compensate for that. So over time, their hydration starts to fall just slightly below what their system actually needs. It's not something you notice, right? Away, because the body adjusts quietly, pulling from internal reserves and maintaining balance just enough to avoid obvious signs. But that's where the problem begins, as this low-level dehydration starts to affect how their kidneys function, how their energy is regulated, and how efficiently their body processes waste. At first, it may show up as small changes, like less energy or slightly concentrated urine, things most people overlook. But as it builds over time, it can place real strain on their system and lead to more serious health issues. From your cat's perspective, their body is working harder just to stay stable, even though everything on the outside looks normal. The simple shift is to introduce more moisture into their diet, whether through wet food or fresh water sources, so their body doesn't have to compensate in silence. 4. Constant background noise that overstimulates their senses. The room feels calm, filled with soft music, voices, the low hum of a TV or phone, and from your perspective, it's a comfortable, lived-in space where nothing seems out of place and everything blends into a normal daily atmosphere. It doesn't register as anything intense, just background noise that makes the environment feel less empty and more relaxed. But for your cat, this same space is processed in a completely different way, because their hearing is far more sensitive and tuned to pick up subtle shifts, small movements, and distant sounds that we barely notice. What feels like a gentle, constant backdrop to you can quietly become an overwhelming layer of stimulation to them, especially when it never truly stops. Over time, this continuous sensory input keeps their nervous system slightly elevated, never fully allowing them to drop into a deep state of rest. You might notice small signs like your cat choosing higher places, leaving the room more often, or staying alert even when lying down, things that seem insignificant on their own but begin to form a pattern. As this builds, it can lead to increased irritability, avoidance, or a sense that your cat is never fully relaxed around you. From their perspective, the environment never quite goes quiet enough to feel completely safe. The simple shift is to create periods of true silence or low stimulation in your home so your cat can fully settle and reset. 5. Too much closeness that removes their sense of control. There's a certain comfort in keeping your cat close throughout the day, letting them follow you everywhere, sleep near you, sit on your lap whenever they want, and it creates a sense of connection that feels natural and reassuring, like you're building a stronger bond simply by being constantly available. It feels right because closeness is usually associated with trust and affection, and most people see this kind of constant contact as something positive. But slowly, without realizing it, this pattern can begin to blur something your cat relies on more than anything else, which is a sense of independent control over their own space and interactions. Cats are wired to move between connection and solitude, and when that balance shifts too far into constant proximity, their system doesn't fully reset. Over time, this can create a subtle tension where your cat starts to feel overstimulated or unable to fully relax, even though they stay physically near you. It may show up as shorter interactions, sudden withdrawal, or a reluctance to engage the way they used to, small changes that are easy to dismiss. From their perspective, closeness stops feeling like a choice and starts feeling like something expected. The simple shift is to allow your cat regular, uninterrupted space and let them initiate contact on their own terms. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate you being here. Did you find this helpful for understanding your cat a bit better? And what's your cat's name? I'd love to know. If you enjoyed this, feel free to like and subscribe for more gentle insights like this.